Colonel Potter, sir, my last wish is to be buried in my mother's wedding gown.
I've seen these Dodgers for 40 years, all the tricks. Dismissed!
For years, fans of MASH have speculated about the sudden and sometimes mysterious departures of their favorite characters, but the real reasons have remained largely hidden behind the scenes. From creative conflicts to personal struggles and unexpected opportunities, each exit tells a story far more complex than what appeared on screen. Now, those untold truths are finally coming into focus, revealing decisions that changed the show forever. So, why did these beloved actors really walk away? And what was happening when the cameras stopped rolling? The real reasons these actors left MASH. MASH became one of the most unforgettable shows in television history because it achieved something very few series could do: make audiences laugh one moment and break their hearts the next. A perfect example is the bizarre yet emotional line, "Colonel Potter, sir, if I have one final request, I want to be buried in my mother's wedding dress." That mix of humor, sadness, and humanity became the soul of the series. When the show premiered in 1972, television series were usually simple, lighthearted entertainment. But MASH changed everything. Set during the Korean War, but airing during the final years of the Vietnam War, the series reflected the pain, fear, and emotional exhaustion many Americans were feeling at the time. Audiences immediately connected with its deeper message about war, survival, and holding on to humanity during chaos. The series followed Army doctors working in difficult wartime conditions. One moment they joked and laughed inside the operating room, and the next they faced death, trauma, loneliness, and emotional collapse. That powerful contrast made the show feel real and emotionally honest. The story originally began in 1968 when former Army surgeon H. Richard Hornberger wrote a novel under the name Richard Hooker, inspired by his experiences during the Korean War. The book became a bestseller because of its dark humor and painful realism. In 1970, director Robert Altman turned it into the successful film MASH, starring Donald Sutherland and Elliott Gould. The television adaptation, created by Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds for CBS, eventually became a massive success after a slow start. However, behind the scenes, tensions grew as the show became more emotional and demanding. Cast disagreements, emotional exhaustion, and creative frustrations eventually caused several major actors to leave, permanently changing the series forever. So, who is the first on the list of actors who left the television series? Which role did he play? Why did he leave? Let's find out. George Morgan. One of the earliest, and perhaps most forgotten, cast changes in MASH involved actor George Morgan, the very first man to play Father Mulcahy in the show's pilot episode. Today, many fans barely remember he was ever part of the series at all, yet his brief appearance remains permanently preserved in the opening credits of nearly every episode. That strange detail alone has puzzled viewers for years. Before joining MASH, Morgan had already built a respectable acting career. He appeared in the popular Western series Bonanza and also acted in Putney Swope, the unusual cult film directed by Robert Downey Sr. On paper, he seemed like a solid choice for the role of Father Mulcahy. But something unexpected happened once the pilot was completed. Oddly enough, Morgan's version of Father Mulcahy barely speaks at all. In fact, throughout the pilot, he mostly appears in the background, reacting silently to the chaos around him. The character simply failed to stand out. According to executive producer Larry Gelbart, the team wanted someone with a naturally unusual and memorable personality, someone who could bring humor and warmth to the role without needing extra writing to make it work. That decision led to actor William Christopher taking over the role. Christopher would go on to become one of the most beloved faces in MASH history, remaining with the series for its entire run and later returning for the spin-off after MASH. Sadly, Morgan's career slowly faded afterward, with only a handful of later appearances before his final screen credit in the 1990 film Have a Nice Night. Which other actors stopped featuring in the television series? What happened? Let's delve into the details of the goodbye that shocked America. McLean Stevenson. If longtime MASH fans are asked which moment devastated them most, many immediately mention the final scene of the Season 3 episode, Abyssinia Henry. It remains one of the most shocking moments in television history. McLean Stevenson played Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, the lovable but overwhelmed commanding officer of the 4077th. Henry was disorganized, confused, and often hilariously unprepared for military leadership, but beneath the chaos, he was warm-hearted and deeply human. Audiences adored him. Stevenson's performance earned widespread praise and made Henry Blake one of the emotional anchors of the early seasons. But behind the scenes, frustration slowly grew. As MASH evolved, Alan Alda became increasingly central to the series. Hawkeye Pierce gradually transformed into the emotional core of the show. Alda also became more involved creatively as a writer and director. Meanwhile, Stevenson felt his own role shrinking. He dreamed of becoming a leading television star rather than remaining a supporting character forever. Like many actors in Hollywood, he worried about becoming permanently typecast. So after Season 3, Stevenson informed producers he was leaving. The writers then made a bold decision that stunned America. Instead of giving Henry Blake a peaceful exit, they reminded audiences that MASH was still a war story. In the episode, Henry finally receives permission to go home. The camp celebrates emotionally as he says goodbye. For most of the episode, it feels joyful and hopeful. Then comes the final scene. Radar enters the operating room quietly. The doctors continue surgery while Radar announces, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. Silence. No music. No jokes. No laughter. Just shock. Many cast members did not know the ending beforehand, making their reactions genuine. Television audiences had never experienced anything quite like it before. The episode transformed television series history forever. Ironically, Stevenson's departure helped elevate MASH from a successful comedy into something legendary. Unfortunately, life after the show did not unfold as he expected. His later television series, including Hello Larry, failed to achieve similar success. Years later, Stevenson admitted leaving MASH may have been a mistake. But despite everything, Henry Blake remains one of the most beloved characters in television history. Who else had to leave the screen? How did it happen? Was there a reason for his exit? Let's dive into the quiet exit that was filled with tension. Wayne Rogers, the quiet exit filled with tension. Unlike McLean Stevenson's emotional farewell, Wayne Rogers disappeared from MASH almost overnight. One episode, Trapper John was there. The next, he was gone. No goodbye, no farewell party, no emotional send-off. Wayne Rogers played Trapper John McIntyre, Hawkeye's closest friend during the early years of the show. The chemistry between Rogers and Alan Alda became one of the defining strengths of early MASH. Their fast-paced banter and rebellious friendship gave the show much of its original energy, but behind the scenes, problems were quietly developing. Rogers had joined the series believing it would function as a true ensemble cast with equal focus on multiple characters. Instead, the spotlight increasingly shifted toward Hawkeye. As Alan Alda's importance grew creatively and emotionally, Rogers felt Trapper John was becoming less important. He later explained that his frustration was not about jealousy. Rather, he believed his character had stopped growing while Hawkeye continued evolving. Eventually, Rogers quietly decided not to renew his contract. The departure created panic behind the scenes because producers learned about it very late. As a result, Trapper John simply vanished between seasons. To replace him, the show introduced B.J. Honeycutt, played by Mike Farrell. The show's tone immediately changed. The earlier buddy comedy atmosphere became softer, deeper, and more reflective. Surprisingly, MASH became even stronger creatively after the transition. Meanwhile, Wayne Rogers built an impressive second career outside Hollywood. Rather than focusing mainly on acting, he became an extremely successful investor and financial commentator. Ironically, he eventually made far more money away from television than on it. Still, fans never forgot Trapper John's easygoing charm and playful humor. The next actor on the list will shock you. Who is the next actor on the list? What took Hill off the screen? Let's dig into the details of the emotional weight that became too much. Gary Berghoff. Among all the cast changes in the television series, MASH, few departures touched viewers as deeply as Gary Berghoff leaving the show. To many audiences, Radar O'Reilly was not just a character, but the emotional center of the 4077th Army Medical Camp. He was soft-spoken, kind, and innocent in a place filled with war chaos and stress. His unusual gift for sensing incoming helicopters before anyone else made him feel almost magical to the soldiers. He carried a teddy bear with him, symbolizing childhood comfort and the longing for home and safety. In many ways, Radar helped soften the harsh reality of war, making the camp feel more human. Interestingly, Gary Berghoff was the only actor from the original 1970 MASH film to continue playing the same role on television. But behind the warmth he showed on screen, Berghoff was quietly struggling in real life. The long filming hours began to affect him deeply, leading to anxiety, stress, and exhaustion. He also missed his wife and daughter greatly, which made the distance even harder to bear. Eventually, the pressure became too much for him to continue. By season 8, he made the difficult decision to leave the show. Unlike some other cast exits, his character Radar was given a meaningful farewell. In the emotional two-part episode, Goodbye Radar, he returns from leave and slowly realizes that his role in the camp has changed. He begins to understand that he has grown beyond the life he once knew. In the final moments, he quietly walks away from the camp, leaving behind his teddy bear, which had always been his symbol of innocence and comfort. The scene became one of the most emotional endings in the series, showing the painful truth that even the most caring people must sometimes move on from places they once called home. After leaving the series, Gary Berghoff chose a quieter life, focused on family, nature painting, wildlife, and invention for peace of mind. The next character was loved by the audience, despite being annoying. Who is the character? Why did he leave the television series? Let's talk about the man who left before the character became stale. Larry Linville. Major Frank Burns was one of those TV characters audiences loved to hate, but that strong reaction was exactly what made him so memorable. Played brilliantly by Larry Linville, Frank was written as an arrogant, insecure, and self-righteous Army doctor who often acted petty and childish. In MASH, he constantly argued with Hawkeye Pierce and Trapper John McIntyre, becoming a funny but frustrating source of conflict in the early seasons. But as the show matured emotionally, Frank Burns began to feel out of place among more developed and changing characters. While others grew deeper and more human, Frank stayed mostly the same, as he was created mainly as a one-note antagonist. Larry Linville later realized there was limited space left for the character to grow in meaningful ways. Instead of staying too long, he made the difficult decision to leave the show after season 5. Importantly, he was not fired. It was a personal choice based on the natural end of the role. His exit became a major turning point for MASH, changing the tone of the series in a big way. After Frank Burns left, the show moved away from simple comedy villains and started focusing more on real human struggles and moral choices. Even though he annoyed viewers a lot, many still felt his absence because he had helped shape the early energy of the series. Larry Linville continued acting in other projects, but none gave him the same level of recognition as Frank Burns. Still, fans remember him clearly because he helped define the chaotic humor and early identity of MASH. In many ways, Frank Burns remains a reminder of how even an annoying character can be essential to a story's balance. His clashes created humor, tension, and contrast that made the other characters shine brighter and more relatable. Without him, the early seasons would not have had the same chaotic spark that viewers still talk about today. His legacy lives on in classic TV history forever. The next actor to leave was a replacement who tried to do better. Who is the actor? Why did he leave? Let's take a look at the sophisticated character who changed everything. David Ogden Stiers. Replacing Frank Burns on MASH was never going to be simple. The character had left a strong mark, and viewers were used to his awkward, foolish charm. But then came a new face who changed everything. That new character was Charles Emerson Winchester III, played by David Ogden Stiers, who arrived in Season 6 and instantly shifted the tone of the series. Unlike Frank Burns, Winchester was not silly or clueless. He was smart, educated, proud, and very careful with his emotions. He loved opera, fine food, classical music, and high-class living. At first, many people saw him as cold, rude, and hard to like. But as episodes went on, viewers began to see something different under the surface. Winchester was not heartless. He was actually deeply hurt inside. The war around him slowly broke his pride, and he started to show moments of kindness, sadness, and care. Stiers acted in this role with great skill, giving Winchester real depth and emotion. He helped the show grow into a more serious and thoughtful drama in its later years. Unlike some actors who left the series early, he stayed until the final episode. His last scenes in the final episode are still remembered as some of the most emotional moments in television. After MASH ended, Stiers continued working as a voice actor and became especially known for his work with Disney animated films. Many years later, he openly shared that he was gay, explaining that fear of rejection in the entertainment industry had kept him private for most of his career. He passed away in 2018, but his role as Winchester is still loved and remembered by fans around the world. His performance continues to stand out because it showed that even difficult characters can feel real, human, and deeply moving when written and acted with care. Winchester remains one of the most complex characters in the history of the series. Fans still appreciate his subtle emotional transformation today, very much indeed. The next on the list of actors who left the television series is a woman. Who is she? Why did she have to go? Let's delve into the details of the woman who refused to stay a stereotype. Loretta Swit. In a television series filled mostly with male soldiers and doctors, one woman quietly made history in a way few expected. Loretta Swit, through her role in MASH, turned what could have been a simple supporting character into something powerful, lasting, and deeply human. When the series first began, Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan was not taken very seriously. She was strict, quick to react, often emotional, and many of her early scenes were played for laughs or embarrassment rather than respect. But Loretta Swit saw something more in her. She believed Margaret could be stronger, smarter, and more meaningful than just a comic figure. Instead of accepting the role as it was written, she worked carefully to bring more truth into every scene. Little by little, she reshaped Margaret's journey. The character grew into a skilled nurse, a disciplined officer, and a woman carrying emotional weight in a world shaped by war and loss. She was no longer just a side story or a joke. Behind the scenes, Sweet often pushed for better writing for Margaret, asking that she be shown with more dignity and depth. She wanted viewers to see Margaret as a real woman, not a stereotype. Her efforts paid off. Over time, audiences began to respect Margaret Houlihan. She became one of the emotional anchors of the show, balancing strength with vulnerability in a way that felt real and relatable. Unlike others, Loretta Sweet stayed all 11 seasons, shaping Margaret's evolution powerfully. Did the departures affect the television series negatively? How did MASH respond to the departures? Let's find out. Why the departures made MASH even stronger. In a strange twist, the very departures that once seemed capable of ruining MASH ended up becoming the reason the series became unforgettable. Every time a major character walked away, the show was forced to change, adapt, and grow into something far deeper than anyone expected. Instead of collapsing under the weight of those losses, MASH used them to tell richer, more emotional stories that stayed with audiences long after each episode ended. When Henry Blake died, viewers were shocked in a way television rarely dared to attempt at the time. His death was not just sad, it was a painful reminder that war does not always allow happy endings. It forced audiences to face the harsh truth that people can disappear suddenly, even those who seemed safe and lovable. Trapper John's departure also changed the heart of the series. The show slowly moved away from being mostly light-hearted comedy and began exploring loneliness, exhaustion, sacrifice, and the emotional scars left behind by war. Then came Radar's emotional farewell, which felt like the end of innocence itself. The cheerful young man who once represented hope and simplicity could no longer remain untouched by the world around him. When Frank Burns left, the writers gained room to create more layered and intelligent storytelling. The humor became sharper, the emotions became deeper, and the characters felt more human than ever before. Through every goodbye, MASH kept evolving. It became wiser, braver, and more emotionally honest with every season. By the time the series ended in 1983, it was no longer viewed as just another television comedy. It had become a cultural phenomenon that connected deeply with millions of people around the world. The final episode drew over 100 million viewers, making it one of the biggest television events in history. Even today, MASH still feels timeless because it understood one heartbreaking truth. Sometimes people laugh, not because life is joyful, but because laughter is the only thing keeping them going through the pain. So, what do you think about the actors who left MASH? How do you feel about the real reasons why they left? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.